We're tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. The numbers are getting worse. People are dying. Young people are dying. Today, my guest is the Attorney General, Peter Neronha. We'll talk about the opioid settlement funding and where the money is going. General, thank you for joining us today.
Nice to see you, Senator.
And I'm glad you're well.
Feeling great.
Survived the surgery. You're doing good.
I got great care here in Rhode Island. I want to make that point. Rhode Island Hospital.
There you
great
go.
care.
There you go. Well, let's talk about the opioid settlement.
Yeah.
There's been a number of questions, how it happened, who's going to run it, and I know me and you have had that discussion, but I want my viewers to hear it from you.
Sure. So look, it all begins at the beginning, with a lawsuit that we filed in Superior Court here in Providence. Why is that important, Senator? It's because it gave us incredible leverage in our negotiations with these opioid manufacturers, distributors, the pharmacies, which we can also talk about, the consultants. If you don't have your own lawsuit, it's much harder to do that. And so we were able to leverage that and frankly get a better result for Rhode Island than if we were in with the masses. So we were kind of partially in with our other AGs. Some we did on our own through our own lawsuit. But what that meant in the end, we'll get to how the money's spent in a minute, but let's start with how much money there is. There's $250 million in money or medicine for Rhode Islanders to help us get beyond this crisis to the extent we can. So it should no longer be about how much money and how much medicine, because we've got all the Suboxone and Narcan the state needs for the next decade. So there's a company that, as part of our settlement, is going to supply our entire need for a decade. We have tens of millions of dollars that are going to come out year over year over year that allows us to do consistent funding of programs. So the money is there. It's $250 million in money and medicine. Now the challenge is to get it where it needs to go, to do the most good.
So a lot of money. We have this group of individuals who are steering the ship, trying to help you spend the money.
Well, let's explain how that works.
Okay.
So what I did not want to do as part of this settlement was be the person who decides where the money goes. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is I got an awful lot on my plate at the office, and we talk about it another time, including healthcare, and this is a component of healthcare, obviously. But money has to be audited, right? That's a lot of money that's going to go to agencies, and that needs to be audited by somebody. And I don't have an auditing arm of my office, so there was that. And so what I insisted upon, though, was that there would be community voices in how the money is distributed, that there would be healthcare and recovery specialist voices in how the money was distributed. There has to be, you were in the Senate, there has to be representative and senatorial input as to how the money is going to be spent. The governor chairs the committee that we established. It's run through EOHHS. So we have an advisory board which consists of all those contingencies, cities and towns, Senate, House, governor. So that's government, healthcare, recovery, community voices that weigh in on recommendations that are made by EOHHS, and then EOHHS puts where the money's going in the budget. But all of it has to be spent on recovery and prevention. It cannot be spent for anything else. I know people hear about it's a lot of money, they'll use it for something else. They'll use it for roads, which God knows we need, but you can't use this money for that.
Right.
You can't use it for, for other things to balance the budget. It's got to be used for opioid recovery.
So let me ask you this question. Obviously, you know that we have a workforce shortage.
We do.
Can any of that funding be used for training?
Yes.
For workforce?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be used for anything that is related to recovery and abatement. So money can be used to train a workforce, train existing workforce about how to treat opioid substance use disorder.
So now there's been some conversation in Supreme Court on the pharmaceutical end of it. Are they going to
Talking about Purdue, Senator?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Purdue.
Yep.
All right, so The initial lawsuit was against manufacturers and distributors. Purdue was one of them, but there were others. Johnson & Johnson,
Right.
AmerisourceBergen, a few others. And Purdue kind of was over here because they were, frankly, in my judgment, the worst actor, okay? And they had also moved a lot of their money offshore, okay, to overseas. The other companies, you know, certainly there are hard negotiations, but the money's here. Their existing companies are going to keep operating. We need pharmaceutical companies, obviously, for other things. Can't take them all out of business. There'll be nobody to provide the other medicines that we need in our everyday lives. But Purdue is different. The attorneys general wanted them out of the pharmaceutical business, meaning the Sackler family.
Yeah.
Out of the pharmaceutical business, and we would not settle with them unless a couple things happened. We knew more about, and I would not agree to the initial settlement. We knew more about where the money went, how much was overseas, and we also had a problem with this. Purdue, the company, was in bankruptcy, and what the Sackler family wanted was to be released from bankruptcy, a release in bankruptcy from claims against them from individuals and attorneys general and municipalities. And we believe that we were right about this, that the Sacklers are not bankrupt. They got all this money. We can't access it because it's overseas.
Right.
But we know they're not bankrupt, so why are they getting a release in bankruptcy? So I was one of 9 attorneys general that did not sign on to the additional deal with Purdue. In fact, we held out for a course of months. And it was over those third-party releases. We said, if you want third-party releases from us, which you don't deserve, there's got to be a lot more money in the deal. And so eventually they agreed to 2 things. We're going to apologize to the families, and that happened. There was a court hearing where families could confront the Sackler family, where families of victims could confront the Sacklers directly, face to face. And also we added as much as $1.5 billion into the deal. So the deal was around $4.5 billion. Because of what we did, there's another potential for Americans across the country to get $1.5 billion additional in money. And in Rhode Island, we doubled our recovery from $20 million to $40 million by us holding out. So now what's before the Supreme Court? That issue of whether the Sacklers can get those releases is what's before the Supreme Court as a matter of bankruptcy law. If the Supreme Court overturns it, we still have our suit against Purdue, and we'll go back to court and we'll get the money that way.
So my next thing I want to talk to you about is prevention.
You don't want to talk about the pharmacies first? Because that's coming too.
Well, that's coming, but I got
money coming from the pharmacy center. I want to talk about it.
But, all right, but I gotta take a break. I gotta take a break. We'll be right back. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages with the AG. And more money coming.
Who's running the show?
Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. Attorney General Peter Nerone is in the house. We're talking about the opioid settlement. Thank you for joining us today. Greatly appreciate you coming in.
Of course.
You have other news for me.
Well, the pharmacies, we're selling with the pharmacies another tens of millions of dollars for Rhode Islanders. Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid. And, look, the pharmacies played a role here too, not pharmacists. We all love our pharmacists. Our pharmacists are sometimes catching things.
Our best friends.
You got it, Senator. Exactly right. And I'm not related to any pharmacists. They're really good. They know us the way sometimes our other healthcare providers have a hard time keeping up. So respect pharmacists very much. But there's no question that corporate pharmacy failed Rhode Islanders and failed Americans. There were far too many opioids coming into our states, including our, CVS has done a lot of good work in Rhode Island. I have a lot of respect for CVS and its leadership. But the bottom line is CVS, like Rite Aid and Walgreens, knew or should have known that the numbers of opioids that were coming into the state could not possibly match appropriate medical use. And in doing so, they failed Rhode Islanders and failed Americans and cost a lot of families loss of lives. And so they need to be held accountable for that. They are. So they're going to be paying their fair share too to try to fix this problem. So I'm proud of the work that we've done there as well.
Yeah, we need to, and I don't have to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to suggest anyway, prevention.
Yeah.
We need to get in with the young folks today. There's too many people. This is airing in December. We're filming in October. There's been a 15-year-old in North Providence, another 15-year-old in East Providence last week, and it's getting progressively worse. The mix is getting worse. The fentanyl is coming in like there's no tomorrow. The xylazine.
It's cheap.
Cheap, mix. How do we get out of it? We can't Narcan our way out of this. We need to educate our young folks.
I know, and look, everybody should have Narcan with them. I mean, I do, everybody should. But you're right, we can't Narcan our way out of it.
Right.
Look, it's a real problem. I mean, you know, here's the problem. I don't think young people are looking to take fentanyl for the most part, but they're getting they're getting pills that look like an oxy that they they'll make me feel better, and it is not a real oxy pill. I mean, when I was U.S. attorney, we did a ton of those counterfeit pill cases, and they hit another big one, you know, just within the last year. So those pills are out there. Look, it's about education. Prevention is about education as much as anything.
Right.
But underlying every one of those, I mean, not everyone has taken a pill, you know, to go out on a Friday night and have fun with their friends.
Right.
Underlying that is our behavioral and mental health issues that we have not supported well enough here either. And I think you in particular know a lot about that and how we have failed young people there as well.
You know where I think we failed, and this is my opinion. When I got into the General Assembly in 2001, we were between #1 and #4 in the country for mental health and substance use. Somewhere, somehow, someone took their eye off the ball, and now we're 48, and now we're paying the price. We have to get back up to 1 or 4, and to protect our young kids. I mean, I have a grandson who's 9, and I know you have young.
I have 2 sons. Yeah,
2 sons.
One's in healthcare.
It's not brain surgery here. It's about education prevention.
Correct.
Education prevention. We're not going to solve the problem, but we can eradicate most of it if we do the right thing.
Yeah, look, you know, both of my boys, you know, one's 23, one's 26. One is in training to be a physician. He's actually going to graduate from med school this next March. But the only thing that I ever worried about with those 2 guys was drug use. They never used drugs to my knowledge, but that was the only thing that could derail them. They were reasonably bright. They took after their mother. And, you know, they worked hard in school. But, you know, as they got older, that's the thing I worried about.
Yeah, you're worried about getting sucked into another group of individuals.
Or, you know, they're depressed. And boy, during COVID, how many kids faced depression? They couldn't be around other kids. Their learning changed. Not everybody learns over Zoom. I can't stand a Zoom. I can't stand it. I would do almost anything to meet in person. I know we had to do it that way, but I think some kids really got hurt along the way. And you're right. It's not just kids who are overdosing, but those are the ones that really get you. You know. And look, from a law enforcement perspective, you know, look, we can't charge our way out of the problem either, right? The guy who sold the pills, you know, I hate to say this, in our drug efforts, meaning our prosecutorial efforts, there's always going to be a DEA.
Right.
Always.
Yeah. And that's, you know, and I look at it from on the other side, because we get the calls all the time. The alcohol is through the roof now. And I think it is because of COVID, no doubt. The economy, nobody wants to work. Everyone wants to work from home. You know, that's a big problem.
No, it's
today.
a challenge. And people are isolated.
Right.
You know, I think, you know, look, I'm an old timer. I'm going to turn 60 this year, and it's hard for me to believe that. But I'll say this: I've been a lawyer for a long time, and whether you are in law or anything else, being around other people makes you better. And it's hard to be around other people on a Zoom. I understand the flexibility. We allow that in our office. But one thing we do is we make sure that everybody comes in. Everybody has to come in at least on Tuesday. So that brings at least one day a week. Everybody's in at the same time. So I'm hiring a lot of new people. Look, we've had people leave to go off on other journeys. I've had 4 different jobs. I started in a private law firm, state AG's office, U.S. Attorney's office, became the U.S. Attorney, now I'm back at the AG's office. People move around in their careers. I know that my children will do that. That means we have to be able to hire behind them. But I really see that so as we're hiring a lot of young lawyers. They benefit from being with each other. And whether you're a kid going through school or you're a young lawyer, that's a benefit. But the reality is society's no longer wired that way.
Right, right. And you know, and we see the from the 15-year-olds, and we had an overdose in Smithfield a few weeks ago, 84. Now here's the problem with the 84. I believe the pendulum went way over here, and now you have shoulder surgery, you have knee surgery, you get a script for 20 pills. That's all you get. If you're still in agony, what do? The doctor says, I can't write another script for you, so they go to the street.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing. I mean, you know, I had a significant surgery in May.
I know.
You know, and my spinal cord was operated on. I was, 7 hours of surgery. They prescribed them for me too. You know, having done this work for a long time, I knew get off them as quick as you can. If for no other reason, I wanted to go back to making decisions that I hope make the Rhode Islanders better. But I also understand that people's pain thresholds are different. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know, I think, doctors used to prescribe 90, right back in the day. And that was a problem, right? Everybody's getting a 90, you go have your teeth pulled for an oral surgeon for a kid. They were given the heavy narcotics to children back then. So you're right, there's a balance. And where that balance sits, I'm no expert there for sure. I'm a lawyer. But I agree with you that we have to do a reset on that if it's not where it's supposed to be.
And I've been having those discussions with the Department of Health, and hopefully they're listening, because that number of 435 of overdoses, it's not 435. It's more like 835. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back with the Attorney General Peter Nerona right after this.
Now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Attorney General Peter Nerona is in the house today. We're talking about the opioid settlement. Thank you again for joining us today. It's
sure.
really a pleasure to have you on. So we talked about all this money coming into the state. We talked about this group of individuals who are trying to push the money out to the street. What's next? What's next for the opioid settlement?
Yeah,
I know you said you had a little bit more coming from the pharmaceutical.
Not a little bit, Senator, a lot, but that's okay.
All right, a little bit of a lot of money. But, what is your vision?
Listen,
to how to get this?
So here's what I think. If we've got a shortage of beds, we need to get more beds.
We got a shortage of beds.
We need to get more beds. That's number one. That's my number one priority. I know how important inpatient treatment is. So that's at the top of my priority list, and that's what my representative keeps pushing in this. And it's my Deputy Attorney General, Adie Goldstein. She keeps me very much up to date. So that's number one. If we need outpatient treatment, we don't have enough outpatient treatment capacity, we need to build that. I visited, I believe it was Kodak, the one that's down behind kind of Route 10.
Yeah, Huntington Avenue, that's Kodak. Yeah.
I mean, it is inexcusable that people that need treatment should be getting treatment in that building. I know they're moving to a new facility, but that treatment's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Nobody should get their health care, and this is health care in that context. I think that to me is treatment, right? Prevention, I agree with you. If we're not doing enough to get to young people, we need to sort of build that. But for me, it always starts with treating people who are facing substance use disorder right now and making it available to them. I can't tell you how many times when I was a young state prosecutor that there would be somebody held at the ACI back before they were getting good treatment out there. They're getting good treatment there now. They were waiting for bed. Weeks and weeks and weeks are at the ACI when they should be in treatment. Yeah. And it's a disgrace that at one point in time you got better treatment if you were in prison than if you were on the street.
All right, we're going to stop right there. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni, with Attorney General Peter Nerona. We'll see you next week.